Well, hello, and welcome to Workday Chats today. My name is Greg Pryor, and I have the incredible privilege and pleasure to look after talent management for Workmates, our nearly 12,000 Workmates. We're joining here live from Workday Rising, where we have about 13,000 of our new best friends, great customers, prospects, and employees. And so I am joined by my good friend here, Justin Bittner, which we'll talk a little bit more about. And we've got some great questions to learn about the good work you all are doing in the area of employee experience and creating a culture. And so maybe Justin, could I ask you to maybe take a second and just introduce yourself, and then we'll start the grilling.
Absolutely. So thank you for having me here today,
Absolutely,
Greg.
our pleasure.
I'm very excited to talk to you. I'm the Senior Director of Finance Information Systems at Ryan LLC. We're a professional services tax company that's based in Dallas, Texas. I'm commonly referred to around the office as the Workday Guru.
Okay.
So that's basically the hat
cool,
that I wear.
That's a cool badge to have.
Hey, it fits, I suppose. So that's basically my role, is just kind of looking after the system, maintaining our adoption roadmap, and making sure we're getting the most out of our Workday subscription.
Oh, excellent. And let me ask, before we get into our questions, how has Workday Rising been for you as a Workday Guru?
It's fantastic. I mean, you meet so many different people that have so many different areas of expertise. I mean, I feel like every time I come to Rising, this is my fourth one, I just have a million ideas, and so it's like a sponge. You just got to kind of wring it out, once you get done. So it's fantastic.
Oh, that's awesome. No, I'm so glad, and thank you for being a great customer. So we'll get into today's topic. Can you tell me a little bit about how your organization thinks about culture and really creates a deep culture focused on a positive employee experience?
Absolutely. So really, the culture at Ryan starts with our values. We've got 5 kind of core key values that we focus on, and that essentially permeates all the different types of culture systems that we have in place. So we've got different things like what we call Ryan Pride, which is a social recognition system where if you see somebody demonstrating one of the values, you can give them points that tie to one of those core values. And so it really just kind of reinforces that idea and makes sure that the values are kind of top of mind for all employees.
Oh, that is an awesome idea. And do you find, is that something that's pretty pervasive, that people do that and they're recognizing each other for?
They do it a ton, actually. So we use Achievers. That's the system that we use for Ryan Pride. And we're consistently recognized as one of their top users of the system because we do it so much. I mean, it's just people giving recognition and kudos back and forth all the time. It's fantastic.
Okay. And then those are also then based on your values, so people can really get a sense of, hey, so you're reinforcing and sharing with people values.
Yes.
Oh, that's super cool.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
It's great.
Let me ask, you talked in that case a little bit about technology. Mm-hmm. You're the Workday Guru at Ryan.
Sure.
How does technology play a role in employee experience at Ryan?
It's enormous. I mean, like I mentioned, we've got so many different programs, and all of these things are online that we use. So we need our employees to have access to the technology. We need it to be easy. We need it to be intuitive. And so that's really what we do and focus on in order to engage the employees and make sure that it's a positive work experience and a positive culture.
Oh, that's awesome. And so I'm going to shift us a little bit, maybe, and talk a little bit about what I call shift happens.
Sure.
How are you seeing, we've been here over the last couple of days talking about a lot in the changing nature of work and sort of the shifting nature of work. I'm curious, how are you specifically seeing, if you are, the nature of work changing?
Sure. It's in the professional services industry, obviously you've got a lot of people that are either on the road or remote or just need that flexibility. So really we see that a lot in our business. We've got over 2,000 consultants at our firm, so
wow.
Being able to address the needs of a mobile workforce, of a remote workforce, really has to be attacked from a kind of technology-first perspective.
Oh, that's awesome. And so I'm curious, do you see maybe either from a generational perspective or your mobile workforce versus people who are maybe a little bit less mobile? I spent 10 years
Sure.
doing consulting myself, so I appreciate the different nature. But I'm curious, do you see different segments of your folks working differently? Maybe your consultants versus people in a home office. I'm curious to.
Absolutely. So everybody's got kind of their optimal situation for work. So some people prefer to have that home office, have those nice screens set up and everything, kind of their comfort zone. Other people like to have the collaborative atmosphere of being in an office and having people kind of at arm's length that they can go to for questions. And then you've got the travelers, the road warriors that are out there, and they need to be able to fire up in a hotel room or sitting down on the wall in an airport. So you've got to be able to identify all of those and make sure everybody's getting what they need.
Oh, that's awesome. And how do you, I mean, what's your role in thinking about that? How do you, do you have particular processes or strategies that, teams that come together to think about how to deliver those experiences?
The big thing is just making things as easy as possible.
Yeah.
And if you make it easy and if you make help easy to find, then you're going to have much fewer issues and you're going to have greater employee engagement and adoption. That's really the key.
Yeah, I know. I've been involved in a number of conversations here at Rising over that, and this idea of, I think, two things to your point: focusing on the employee, right? Shifting away from whether it's an HR function or IT or finance function, and saying, for so many years it's all been about the things we deliver, and this shift now to really put our employees at the center, to be really fundamentally focused on the employee experience seems to be a major. And then how do we use technology? How do we use systems and capabilities to do that? Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, no, fantastic. I'm curious. So part of my role is to help look after leadership. We feel incredibly lucky and grateful at Workday to have an amazing leadership team who's very invested in our values. Can you tell me a little bit about how you've created a leadership culture and how your leadership culture impacts employee experience?
Sure. I think the two big things with leadership at Ryan are going to be transparency and then just demonstration. So transparency, every month we have a team talk where our CEO, Brent Ryan, gets
cool.
on a meeting with the entire company, over probably 2,700 people, and reports on the current health of the company, any big announcements that are coming down the pipe, and then the second half of that call is dedicated to a live Q&A with questions coming in from all over the world to our CEO, who answers everything candidly. So that culture of transparency is so important because you want to feel like your voice carries throughout the organization as an employee. The second piece is demonstration. So not only with our CEO, but with all of the various leaders throughout the organization, people are walking the walk. I mean, it's one thing to talk about a good culture, but you have to go out there and do it and demonstrate it. There'll be little pockets of leadership that come up within different groups, but if you don't have those people at the top really demonstrating that, then people don't really consider it genuine.
Yeah. No, I do think, I think when I talk to people about it, that tone at the top, to your point, I think that it is so central. It's sort of necessary but not sufficient to create an amazing culture, but it is really important. It sounds like you put in place some cadence, some behaviors, some programs, people reinforcing, leaders spending every month. That's super cool to do that. Are there other types of programs that you've put in place to think about that, to reinforce the culture?
Oh, absolutely. So our Chief People Officer, Tony Bridwell, came in a couple years back and basically right away implemented a culture transformation.
Wow.
So each year he's met with every single person within the company, so all of our offices across the globe, to kind of set the expectation for culture and make sure that everybody is feeling it and living it. So,
I'm sorry, he meets with every employee?
With every employee, goes around to all the different offices and does a culture workshop. This is a half-day workshop focused specifically on culture. It's been it really is a true transformation.
Yeah, that's an extraordinary effort for. How much time does that take? That's got to be. In some ways, it makes total sense, but that's an extraordinary commitment.
Yeah, hours and hours, absolutely. Yeah.
Wow, that is super cool. I'm curious. So you've got your Chief People Officer spending time in the offices. You've got your CEO connecting with everyone in the entire company on a monthly. Are there other things that you do to keep a pulse on the sentiment of the workforce and how people are feeling?
Absolutely. So I mentioned we use Achievers as kind of our recognition system. So within Achievers, we have it's a bot, a little pop-up bot called Alley, and it's basically a quick pulse of how do you feel on a scale from frowny face all the way 4 gradients up to extreme smiley face. How do you feel about work today? And so you make a rating, and then that bot will ask you follow-up questions to say, well, what makes you feel this way? What things are going well? What things could be improved? And then all of that feedback is internalized in the system, and then we can use that to turn around and say, oh, well, our employees are feeling this way because they like this, or they'd like to work on that. So it really gives you a lot more actionable insight into kind of what the tenor of the organization is.
Oh, that's super cool. And how frequently are people pretty active in using that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a system before that was a little bit tougher to navigate, and so now that we've changed to this, very intuitive, smiley face gradient, if you will, employees have really responded to that, and we've seen a lot more attention.
Yeah, and so that's pretty cool. I mean, you're getting that continuous stream. I mean, and not maybe slightly similar at Workday. We actually pulse the entire company every Friday. We every Friday is Feedback Friday, and I am really struck by. We used to do sort of, back in the day, not particularly at Workday, but at other companies, I've worked sort of that annual or maybe every 2-year engagement survey. And I was earlier in a session with Dean Carter, who's a good friend, and the CHRO in Patagonia, and he was comparing that to an example of, imagine if on one day I wanted to look and say, what's the weather in Chicago? Sure. And then I was going to plan, all of my clothes for a whole year.
Right.
And as you know, it'd be very, very, very different weather
Yeah.
there. And so, I think we've gone from this place where we're taking much more consistent, much more regular snapshots of what the employee experience looks like. I'm curious, what do you see in the sentiment changing? Do you see, dramatic shifts in the sentiment? How do you think about then addressing them when you see them?
I think the big thing that you look for are kind of those major trends. Obviously, like you said, you don't want to base everything you do off of one particular snapshot. That's why it's important to kind of have that data set over time so you can really see where things are going. And I think some of it just depends on kind of some of the things that are happening in the organization. We've got an annual firm meeting every year that's similar to Rising, where we all get together and kind of talk about the company, what's to come, and obviously your employee morale is going to be higher there. And other times it may be a little bit tougher when when it's busy season or things like that. So the big thing is to just look at that and try to anticipate when those lows can happen and plan things that'll boost employee engagement during those times.
So you really are considering what's happening in the sort of cadence of the business. Obviously, you're driven by financial schedules and
Right.
events that happen.
Right.
That happen. So you're really actively anticipating that. When are there going to be certain pressure points? Where are people going to be?
Absolutely.
That's super cool. Yeah, very good. So I'm curious. When you think about those folks who are out on the road all the time, are there other ways that you help keep them connected, either to the company as a whole or to their other colleagues? Way that you're maintaining those connections, especially for people who are maybe even spending more time at a customer or client site
Sure.
than they may be, at your home offices. Ways that you're doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, we've got the team talks every month. We also do kind of these culture booster shots that come out in an email format as just, hey, here's a reminder on some of our key values and key initiatives to keep in mind. So that obviously goes out to a remote audience as well as everybody in the offices. And then we do focus on having different events throughout the year so that if there are employees on the road, they can kind of come in and participate in those.
Okay.
We even, this year, we were fortunate enough to be recognized as the number 52 best place to work.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you very much.
I have participated in those.
Yeah.
That is extraordinary. I mean, to even appear on that list
Sure.
is extraordinary, and to be number 52, especially with a workforce that is on the road a lot, that is so incredibly client facing. That's congratulations. That's extraordinary.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a recognition that we take a lot of pride in as an organization, and so much so that this past summer, our CEO announced on one of those team talks, one of those monthly calls, that we were doing what's called summer break, where everybody in the company gets to take a week off, a designated week, and we shut down the company in recognition of all the effort that it's taken to get to that point and really create that strong culture. So, there's that balance of we're going to work hard, but as a reward for that, we're going to give you time to spend back with your family and doing the things that you really enjoy.
Oh, that is so awesome. And is it actually at the same time? I mean, everyone takes the same week.
Same week.
I think that's brilliant. I mean,
Yes.
I think part of the challenge is when you take your own week, the emails pile up. Maybe
Yeah.
it's not such a break. It's like
Sure.
I got a few days off, but I've got to now dig out of this pile. So everyone sort of stops at that same time,
Yes.
recharges, spends time with the family, pursues their
Anything they want to do, email
a
moratorium.
whole week.
It's
That
great.
that couldn't have been easy for the leadership team
Oh,
to make that decision. I mean, that's a real impact to the business.
it is, but the idea is that if you can re-energize the
Yeah.
employee base, then it's going to pay for itself
Awesome.
in the long run.
That's so smart.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I shift a little bit to HR technologies, and
Sure.
happy to talk about Workday or other technologies. I'm curious, what are some of the things that you're most excited about that, from a technology perspective, or is enabling employee experience, is enabling performance and people to have better workdays?
Sure. One of the neat things that I saw actually during the keynote yesterday was the concept of the people experience in Workday. And that was fascinating to me because obviously we're moving more toward this tech first workforce, and having the ability to kind of customize and configure that user experience within Workday, that's going to be really powerful. Like I said, we want to make things easy, make them intuitive, so the more we're able to really make that Workday experience personal for our employees, that's going to be huge.
Yeah. No, I share your excitement around it. I think really that's what our consumer experience is, right? I mean, I get notices from Google, not on any, where traffic is anywhere in the world, but on my route home, right?
Yep.
Those things that, and we obviously have to balance personalization and privacy on that.
Right.
But it's our consumer expectation that you know me, you know what's important to me, and you're curating content, connections, other information to enable my success.
Right.
Yeah, that's going to be
Absolutely.
exciting. Maybe shifting gears a little bit to careers. You've got a really super professional, smart, crazy, capable workforce.
Sure.
How have you been thinking about careers, either from a generational perspective or just given your workforce? Any sort of interesting things you're doing in the career space?
Yeah, absolutely. So our HR team's doing a great job of really focusing on kind of nurturing the entire life cycle of a career. So going all the way from kind of the recruiting phase all the way through to the alumni phase within our employee base, because we really want to create that environment of family at Ryan, and making people understand that once they join the firm, they've got a relationship for life. And so we put focus on each of those areas to make sure that we're doing the best we can to serve people throughout their entire career with Ryan.
Okay, that's very cool. And so one of the hot topics, which in some ways surprised me that we're still talking a little bit about this, given the good progress of maybe, how do you think about sort of performance management, or what we would at Workday call sort of performance enablement? How do you both sort of think about that, and how do you use technology to enable your thousands of teammates?
A lot of it's really in Workday. I mean, Workday has unlocked a ton of potential for us in that area. I mean, we're able to have review and recommend conversations with employees where we're taking a look at their skills and their goals, and assessing those things in real time. We're also able to leverage Workday Learning.
Okay.
So we've got all of our training modules and everything within Workday. So really kind of creating that one place where people can go and have a consistent user experience. It's really just enabled us to do quite a bit in terms of performance.
And you talked about, you talked about review and
Review and recommend, I believe.
recommend.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So it's basically kind of looking at employee performance and then making sure that going forward we're focusing on the right behaviors to enable success.
That's awesome. I've done a lot of research in this space, and I think we've spent 100 or more years really in a rear view mirror review of
Sure.
people's performance, and while there is relevance to that and it's important, I think really as you guys are doing that look ahead, what can we do? How can we, and there's a lot of work on this idea of sort of growth mindset and saying, what can I do to be more successful in the future? Maybe I'm not doing something yet,
Sure.
but I love that the phrase of recommend. What can I help recommend
Right.
that you can do to be more successful in the future?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Feedback, and we call it feedback and feed forward, is also a big part of it. So it's having that conversation around these are the things you do well, but then also having kind of a frame of, going forward, let's focus on these things as well. So you take any kind of negativity or criticism out of the conversation and make it more about building up and positivity.
Yeah, and I'm curious with your workforce from a generational perspective, a little bit younger, a little bit sort of older, across the board. I mean,
It's a pretty good blend,
pretty
honestly.
good blend. Okay.
Yeah, so we've got, obviously in professional services, typically your consulting workforce is going to be a little bit younger, but then you've got tons of seasoned professionals and directors and principals that are going to be older and more experienced. So you've got to be able to tailor systems
Yeah.
and processes that address all of their needs effectively.
Yeah, no, I recently wrote a blog for Workday. We talk about now we've got 5 generations in the workplace.
Wow,
at
yeah.
least at Workday, we've got our first really material class of Gen Zers now coming into the workforce. And
Right.
so, as you said, sort of tailoring and considering and thinking, sort of meeting people where they are,
Sure.
potentially with very different expectations. You've got people in different generations, maybe doing different types of work in different contexts, in home offices and offices,
Right.
on the road. Yeah, let me ask you maybe one or two more questions.
Sure.
What excites you most about? I'm going to ask you two.
Sure.
About employee experience and the way you're thinking about it, and then I'm
Okay.
going to ask you about technology as well. But what's sort of capturing your imagination? What's exciting you about employee experience?
For me, it's really about getting that engagement and getting that morale and that kind of energy around the office. I mean, that's really what drives me is having a culture and a workplace that just feels like you're part of a family and just really feels like when you come to work, I want to be here. This is a place that I want to be in, that I enjoy being around the people there. So that's really what kind of fires me up, and I think that we've got that at Ryan, and it's extremely exciting.
Oh, fantastic! And then maybe on the technology front, what are you excited about from the future of technology
Sure.
and some of the things you're seeing?
So being able to kind of blend that idea and that thrust of culture and see that manifest itself within technology is really intriguing to me. So I mentioned how we use Achievers to kind of give points to people. We also use Limeade in order to have kind of a health management system, almost like step trackers, those type of things.
Okay.
And then again, with the people experience within Workday, being able to blend all of those things for kind of a consistent picture of each employee, that's extremely powerful, and it gives you the ability to kind of know yourself, but then to see that reflected within these different systems is really confirming and also motivating, because you see, oh, I've got this, or I'm drinking this much water a day or something like that. How can I be better? So it just gets you kind of in that positive achievement mindset.
Yeah, it's interesting. My workmate and our head of strategy, Leanne Levensaler, who is a very smart, thoughtful fitness person herself. She talks to me. We've had conversations about this idea of the quantified self. So whether it's Fitbit or Peloton or Apple Watch or other things, there is this increased interest in, to your point, people knowing where they stand. And some days that's standing or walking or, and so my sense is, and I'd be curious to get your sense of this, is that will continually translate. That's our consumer experience.
Sure.
We want to know, right to your point, how much water am I drinking? How healthy am I? Increasing devices that are giving us telemetry about our bodies. When people choose to do that, my sense is that people will expect that from work as well. What learning have I taken? What are my career interests? And that the companies are curating content, whether that's learning, whether that's career opportunities, whether that's coaching, whether that's different opportunities. Do you see some of that as you've got more and more data?
Oh, absolutely. So one of my favorite quotes from our COO, Ginny Kissling, is, if you can measure it, you can manage it. So if you can see the data, that's going to give you the ability to make improvements or tailor your behaviors to optimize those things. And I think we'll see that absolutely in the future. I mean, we get data reports from all those different systems I mentioned, and so I can easily see a future where we're looking for more ways to measure, say in Workday, how long does a business process take to complete, cycle time,
Right.
what are the different things that we can control and measure so that we can make sure that we're doing our work the most efficient.
Yeah. Well, and I love what you're saying there, and I really also would tend to agree. I mean, I think this is what people are expecting, that for the most part, they want to enable theirs.
Sure.
We want to be successful.
Right.
I really believe the vast majority of people want to be successful. What they're looking for, to your point, is that feedback. Whether that feedback or input comes from other colleagues in providing feedback, whether it's things I'm doing, whether it's learning I'm engaged in, or other types of activity. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Maybe one more question.
Sure.
So, what advice would you give to our audience today on ways that they can create an even more extraordinary employee experience?
Sure, absolutely. So I think the big thing is to start with those core values. Just really commit to some values and make sure those are reinforced throughout everything you do across the day, whether that's through formalized programs or even just through kind of informal talking with your employees. And then having that transparency across all levels of the organization, making sure that leadership is really reinforcing those values and demonstrating them. That's going to be the most pivotal thing to employee adoption.
Yeah, no, and I couldn't agree more, and no doubt why you're ranked so highly as one of the best places to work in the U.S. I actually think we're at this really pivotal point where employees expect and want to work for great cultures. They want to work for great companies. They want to be doing great work for their customers, and I'm really excited about how organizations are focusing on that employee experience, using technology, using information, providing feedback, and really ultimately I think augmenting some of the work that has been very difficult to do in the past, so we can really have these human conversations. And so sort of the idea of augmenting and automating so that we can really elevate the important work ahead. Well,
sure.
I want to thank you for the good work you've been doing. I want to thank you for taking some time to share with our audience today the great things that you were doing, and I want to wish you all the luck on your journey, and hope that you move from, 52? 50?
Only way to go is up.
Well, and I'd love to see you there.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks so much. We
All right.
really appreciate it.
Thank you very
Thanks
much,
for all
Greg.
your leadership, Justin.
I appreciate it.
Thanks, my
Thank you.
friend. All right.
At Workday, we talk a lot about how our technology is fundamentally different than the competition. A big reason for this is because we started from scratch, and we were able to build our technology based on what we call the Power of One. It's this Power of One philosophy, along with the object-based, in-memory technology, that has allowed us to solve the challenges that have plagued legacy enterprise software systems for years. It also has allowed us to evolve and weave in new technologies. Prior to Workday, people worked with transactional data that was two-dimensional. It was flat. It was rows and columns, and it was difficult to work with. You had to extract the data from one system, plop it in another system, and then it could be analyzed. But then you were basing your decisions on outdated data, stale, and no one likes stale. So we closed the gap by embedding the whole notion of transactions and analysis in one system. This data in Workday, it's three-dimensional. Customers can come at it from different angles, which allows them to drill down to detail and drill across to data connections. Today, our customers want to do even more with Workday. They want to bring in operational data that's out there. Point of sale data, claims insurance data, billing data, etc., and connect it to the transactional and people data that's already in Workday. And since our customers want to do this, we make it happen. We knew the potential of all this data working together, and it's something no other vendor is capable of doing. So we acquired a big data company. Workday Prism Analytics is a powerful data hub that gathers massive amounts of external data and connects it to the transactional data. And it can execute summary to detail fast. In turn, our customers can analyze that data at scale. This is a very, very, very big deal because Prism connects that operational data to the financial and people data in Workday. This makes it easier and faster to uncover key insights and identify opportunities. This has never been done before. And it's this connectivity of people, financial and operational data that results in powerful analytics. Remember, the competition can't do this because their data lives on islands, but not the kind of islands we dream about. These are sad, isolated islands, and the data is ferried back and forth between these sad islands. One of those islands is the traditional planning system. It's where data related to money and costs resides. Another of those islands is a traditional transaction system. It's where all the other rich data and insight lives. People on these islands are running around with spreadsheets, manipulating and moving around data. This is incredibly inefficient. With Prism Analytics, you're not isolated. You get a complete view of your business. For finance, this is a game changer because the blocks have been removed and the data is timely. It's there when you need it, and you can click and dig and learn why things are happening. Get into the forensics and do root analysis. Find anomalies as well as opportunities. Enterprise business processes require three key components, or let's coin them as engines. A transactions engine, an analytics engine, and a planning engine. And they all share a common ingredient. You guessed it, data. With Workday's acquisition of Adaptive Insights, we can offer our customers something that no other vendor can. Our customers can plan, execute, analyze, and extend in a single system. The beauty of planning is it gives you a microcosm of your company to model, but with the detailed data adjacent to it. It's all done in one system, with one source of data, one user experience, one security model, and in one community. You have a single system that connects all the relevant business data. This means you can model all kinds of different scenarios, and this will lead you to the answers you need fast. And with Workday, it gets even more powerful. As you model, you can drill into all that data and learn why certain organizational structures succeed and others don't. Things like the ratio of services to salespeople, the skills at that location, the compensation costs. Just about anything you can think of can be explored from within Workday. Because when you're planning, you can also dig and explore in the transactions engine. Remember, this is possible only because we've brought all the data together in one place. It's like taking three powerful engines, the transactions, analytics, and planning engines, and creating one super engine that runs beautifully. And this is only going to get better when our machine learning surfaces insights and recommends potential actions. We will continue to evolve and innovate because that's what our customers expect. And we can do this quickly and easily because we built our technology on the power of one. This will stay true in light of acquisitions, emerging technology, and whatever else the future holds. Because when you're always evolving, you're built for the future.
Machine learning all starts with data. Large quantities of data. Data that's rich and of the highest quality. That's what's needed for machine learning to make a business impact. And that's the kind of data we work with at Workday. The data we possess has a distinct advantage because it comes from a single source. This is huge because our machine learning can be applied to the data from 37 million Workday users. 8.3 billion transactions per month. Each one of those transactions is a decision, and those decisions are essential fuel for machine learning. With Workday's machine learning at the core approach, we can scale a solution through all of our customers who choose to participate and learn holistically from the decisions that they are making with each transaction. So, our system learns faster. Faster than that? Faster than that? Yeah, that fast. And the faster the machine learns, the better predictions it generates. Better predictions lead to better decisions. Better decisions lead to better business outcomes. And better, well, better's just better. An example of Workday machine learning in action is what we're doing with skills. We started by using machine learning neural probabilistic language models to build our skills graph. Or, in other words, machine learning read and analyzed countless documents to understand and graph the interrelatedness of more than 200,000 skills. That's a lot of reading. With Workday, customers gain understanding of the type of skills in their workforce, analyze the strengths and gaps, and plan for the future. They can connect the right candidate to the right job, the right employee with the right gig, or the right learning content or mentor to the right employee. The possibilities of these predictive connections are immense. Whether advancing HCM to anticipate in-demand skills, powering financials with anomaly detection for a faster close, or evolving the user experience through personalization, we're using machine learning to supercharge the user, not to replace them. And like everything we do at Workday, it's built on a foundation of transparency, customer choice, and a high level of trust. And all of this is only the beginning. We hope you're as excited about it as we are.
Where is analytics headed? We all know that it started with IT running and distributing reports. Then came the era of self-service tools that business analysts could use themselves. At Workday, our self-service tools include dashboards and scorecards that can monitor KPIs and help meet reporting requirements. But graphs and scorecards are just a couple of the many tools you have at hand. We're introducing discovery boards to be able to quickly analyze all of your data and surface key insights in highly interactive ways. Let's say you're not naturally wired with a passion for graphs and charts. No problem. It happens. But here's the deal. We're all naturally wired through millions of years of evolution to understand stories. That's why augmented analytics will be a game changer. It tells a story. It looks at millions of scenarios and discovers insights at unimaginable speeds. Augmented analytics uses pattern detection to look for changes a person might not see, graph processing to find connections across vast data sets, machine learning to predict and surface the most critical issues, and natural language generation to explain what's happening in a simple story. All of this will help compress the time it takes to find unexpected insights. Everything from the big aha moments to the things that make you go, It will also help raise the level of data literacy in our customers. And a data literate world is a beautiful thing. We're working with design partners on our first augmented analytics powered application called Workday People Analytics. And we can't wait to show you more soon. Welcome to the new world of analytics. We hope you're as excited about it as we are.
The world is changing fast. To succeed, you need to be agile. And to be agile, you have to plan well and react quickly. But what does it mean to be truly agile? Well, if you can prioritize your resources, align your organization around the KPIs that matter, and act rapidly when change happens, that's a great start. But that's easier said than done. It's impossible to achieve those things in a traditional planning system. And that's because those systems are static, slow, disparate, and siloed. And everyone knows silos are for gray. At Workday, with Adaptive Insights, we are removing those limits with our Elastic Hypercube technology. This is our next generation in-memory engine, and it's the heart of our business planning cloud. Why is it so special? Because it can dynamically allocate resources depending on your needs. It knows precisely what to calculate, and maybe more importantly, what not to calculate. It allows you to virtually model, analyze, and report on anything. And it brings together both finance and business stakeholders to power planning across the whole organization. Now comes our next wave of innovation in business planning. We call it intelligent planning. Intelligent planning harnesses the speed and abundance of computing resources and combines it with technologies like machine learning and other forms of artificial intelligence. Imagine if your planning platform could detect anomalies in your plan, or your drivers, or your forecasts. Imagine if you could detect the key drivers to focus on, surface the right KPIs to the right users at the right moment. That's what we imagined, and that's what we are delivering. We see a future where you can plan and analyze without limits, with a platform that automates time-consuming tasks, scales along with your needs, and lets you act quickly and make the right decisions to drive true agility for your business. Welcome to the new world of planning. We hope you are as excited about it as we are.
At Workday, we're out to create an employee experience that's every bit as delightful as the consumer experiences we have outside of work. Let me take you through an analogy we're all familiar with, our homes. Before the era of smart homes, our homes were unable to predict, and they knew remarkably little about us. Now the lights come on, the temperature adjusts, and your favorite music starts to play. This is how Workday is thinking about the employee experience. We're redefining what it means to know people, their interests, actions, and tendencies, so we can quickly provide personalized recommendations, notifications, and provide an unforgettable experience. And to do so, we're using the latest in predictive technologies. We start with an intuitive and relevant homepage, greeting users with a familiar card-style interface with relevant content. And we're introducing journeys, a completely tailored set of tasks that are presented when additional guidance is needed. For example, we can help a new manager better understand the tasks they should be aware of while onboarding, getting them off on the right foot and setting them up for success in their new role. And as we invest in transformative technologies such as machine learning, natural language processing, and enterprise search, Workday will get even smarter. We're creating a new search service that will make it easier for employees to find what they want when they want it. And we're building a native knowledge base to view HR and payroll articles. The articles can be enriched with embedded and searchable video and offer the user the opportunity to take immediate action with links to relevant Workday tasks and reports. This new search service will make it possible to assist employees throughout their help lifecycle. Our goal is to build a Workday that helps all employees lead more productive and meaningful work lives. No more enterprise versus consumer, just what people need when they need it. Welcome to the new world of work. We hope you're as excited about it as we are.
We are building the world's most advanced network of verified and trusted credentials, powered by blockchain technology. Meet Workday Credentials for Enterprise and the Way2 app for individuals. Using Workday Credentials, enterprises can issue and verify credentials for their workforce, including employment history, salary, education, and more, helping to streamline credentials verification and compliance. Once these credentials are issued, Way2 gives individuals a secure way to store, manage, and share their personal and professional data. And blockchain technology provides instant trust and authenticity. Imagine a world where workers can easily prove that they have the skills for different projects or a new job, where enterprises can verify that workers have the right education and experience. Now with Workday, that world is here.
At Workday, we talk a lot about how our technology is fundamentally different than the competition. A big reason for this is because we started from scratch and we were able to build our technology based on what we call the Power of One. It's this Power of One philosophy, along with the object-based in-memory technology, that has allowed us to solve the challenges that have plagued legacy enterprise software systems for years. It also has allowed us to evolve and weave in new technologies. Prior to Workday, people worked with transactional data that was two-dimensional. It was flat. It was rows and columns. And it was difficult to work with. You had to extract the data from one system, plop it in another system, and then it could be analyzed. But then you were basing your decisions on outdated data, stale, and no one likes stale. So we closed the gap by embedding the whole notion of transactions and analysis in one system. This data in Workday, it's three-dimensional. Customers can come at it from different angles, which allows them to drill down to detail and drill across to data connections. Today, our customers want to do even more with Workday. They want to bring in operational data that's out there. Point of sale data, claims insurance data, billing data, etc. and connect it to the transactional and people data that's already in Workday. And since our customers want to do this, we make it happen. We knew the potential of all this data working together, and it's something no other vendor is capable of doing. So we acquired a big data company. Workday Prism Analytics is a powerful data hub that gathers massive amounts of external data and connects it to the transactional data. And it can execute summary to detail fast. In turn, our customers can analyze that data at scale. This is a very, very, very big deal because Prism connects that operational data to the financial and people data in Workday. This makes it easier and faster to uncover key insights and identify opportunities. This has never been done before. And it's this connectivity of people, financial and operational data that results in powerful analytics. Remember, the competition can't do this because their data lives on islands, but not the kind of islands we dream about. These are sad, isolated islands, and the data is ferried back and forth between these sad islands. One of those islands is the traditional planning system. It's where data related to money and costs resides. Another of those islands is a traditional transaction system. It's where all the other rich data and insight lives. People on these islands are running around with spreadsheets, manipulating and moving around data. This is incredibly inefficient. With Prism Analytics, you're not isolated. You get a complete view of your business. For finance, this is a game changer because the blocks have been removed and the data is timely. It's there when you need it, and you can click and dig and learn why things are happening. Get into the forensics and do root analysis. Find anomalies as well as opportunities. Enterprise business processes require three key components, or let's coin them as engines. A transactions engine, an analytics engine, and a planning engine. And they all share a common ingredient. You guessed it, data. With Workday's acquisition of Adaptive Insights, we can offer our customers something that no other vendor can. Our customers can plan, execute, analyze, and extend in a single system. The beauty of planning is it gives you a microcosm of your company to model, but with the detailed data adjacent to it. It's all done in one system, with one source of data, one user experience, one security model, and in one community. You have a single system that connects all the relevant business data. This means you can model all kinds of different scenarios, and this will lead you to the answers you need fast. And with Workday, it gets even more powerful. As you model, you can drill into all that data and learn why certain organizational structures succeed and others don't. Things like the ratio of services to salespeople, the skills at that location, the compensation costs. Just about anything you can think of can be explored from within Workday. Because when you're planning, you can also dig and explore in the transactions engine. Remember, this is possible only because we've brought all the data together in one place. It's like taking three powerful engines, the transactions, analytics, and planning engines, and creating one super engine that runs beautifully. And this is only going to get better when our machine learning surfaces insights and recommends potential actions. We will continue to evolve and innovate because that's what our customers expect. And we can do this quickly and easily because we built our technology on the power of one. This will stay true in light of acquisitions, emerging technology, and whatever else the future holds. Because when you're always evolving, you're built for the future.
Machine learning all starts with data. Large quantities of data. Data that's rich and of the highest quality. That's what's needed for machine learning to make a business impact. And that's the kind of data we work with at Workday. The data we possess has a distinct advantage because it comes from a single source. This is huge because our machine learning can be applied to the data from 37 million Workday users. 8.3 billion transactions per month. Each one of those transactions is a decision, and those decisions are essential fuel for machine learning. With Workday's machine learning at the core approach, we can scale a solution through all of our customers who choose to participate and learn holistically from the decisions that they are making with each transaction. So, our system learns faster. Faster than that? Faster than that? Yeah, that fast. And the faster the machine learns, the better predictions it generates. Better predictions lead to better decisions. Better decisions lead to better business outcomes. And better, well, better's just better. An example of Workday machine learning in action is what we're doing with skills. We started by using machine learning neural probabilistic language models to build our skills graph. Or, in other words, machine learning read and analyzed countless documents to understand and graph the interrelatedness of more than 200,000 skills. That's a lot of reading. With Workday, customers gain understanding of the type of skills in their workforce, analyze the strengths and gaps, and plan for the future. They can connect the right candidate to the right job, the right employee with the right gig, or the right learning content or mentor to the right employee. The possibilities of these predictive connections are immense. Whether advancing HCM to anticipate in-demand skills, powering financials with anomaly detection for a faster close, or evolving the user experience through personalization, we're using machine learning to supercharge the user, not to replace them. And like everything we do at Workday, it's built on a foundation of transparency, customer choice, and a high level of trust. And all of this is only the beginning. We hope you're as excited about it as we are.
Where is analytics headed? We all know that it started with IT running and distributing reports. Then came the era of self-service tools that business analysts could use themselves. At Workday, our self-service tools include dashboards and scorecards that can monitor KPIs and help meet reporting requirements. But graphs and scorecards are just a couple of the many tools you have at hand. We're introducing discovery boards to be able to quickly analyze all of your data and surface key insights in highly interactive ways. Let's say you're not naturally wired with a passion for graphs and charts. No problem, it happens. But here's the deal. We're all naturally wired through millions of years of evolution to understand stories. That's why augmented analytics will be a game changer. It tells a story. It looks at millions of scenarios and discovers insights at unimaginable speeds. Augmented analytics uses pattern detection to look for changes a person might not see, graph processing to find connections across vast data sets, machine learning to predict and surface the most critical issues, and natural language generation to explain what's happening in a simple story. All of this will help compress the time it takes to find unexpected insights. Everything from the big aha moments to the things that make you go, It will also help raise the level of data literacy in our customers. And a data literate world is a beautiful thing. We're working with design partners on our first augmented analytics powered application called Workday People Analytics. And we can't wait to show you more soon. Welcome to the new world of analytics. We hope you're as excited about it as we are.
So I'd like to go ahead and start by introducing our guests today. We'll start with you, Matt.
Sure. Thanks, Annette. Hi, everybody. My name is Matt Schweiderman. I am a principal at Deloitte Consulting. I'm a finance transformation professional, and I have been working in the Workday ecosystem with finance and analytics for the last several years. But it's been my whole career working with the Office of the CFO around transformation and how do we do things better, more effectively, and efficiently.
Hi everyone, my name's Tim Wakeford. I'm the VP for Finance Product Strategy at Workday. I've been here for a couple of years. Prior to that, I spent the best part of 20 years or so working in finance functions, mainly in London in the UK, but obviously I've travelled extensively. So I've actually been through a Workday implementation journey, so I kind of come at this whole software conversation very much as a finance practitioner. So it's a pleasure to be with you today.
Rob.
And I'm Rob Hull. I'm the founder of Adaptive Insights, a Workday company. Former CFO. Started Adaptive Insights about 16 years ago to solve my own pains as a finance professional, and have been working with companies in the planning space now for the better part of 16 years.
Well, I am super excited to have these three gentlemen with me today because having been in the software industry now for almost 30 years, I hate to admit that, but it's been really interesting to see the evolution over those 30 years, which I'm sure all of you can attest to. So one of the things that we see today, I think the finance world has been evolving for quite some time, and we're seeing a couple of unique things come together, and one is the accelerated pace of change in technology, and how that's impacting the finance function, but also the amount of data that is being generated by organizations. And I don't see either one of these two things likely to slow down anytime in the near future. So it's really kind of this conversation around how do we bring, or how does finance bring greater value to the business? We've been talking about this evolution, but with all of this technology. So I want to kick off the conversation with talking a little bit about finance transformation. Now we've had this discussion, we were chatting beforehand, and we were talking about how we've been talking about finance transformation now for over 2 decades. A long time. But I guess the question is in talking with a lot of customers and talking with a lot of professionals such as yourselves, that there hasn't been a huge amount of really true transformation in finance. Now what we've done is we're talking about digital transformation. So we put the word digital in front of transformation. And so I want to have a little conversation around first, what do you guys see from what has been your experience over the past 20 so years, what finance transformation means from your perspective, and then we'll pivot to how we see digital transformation being any different today than it was over the past. So, Tim, why don't we start with you?
Give me the easy question to start with. Okay. So I've been through a number of transformations in my career, very large ones of big private equity-backed mergers and acquisitions and ultimate IPOs, down to kind of smaller organisations who are just looking to do change and looking to improve the way that they're running the function. And I think there's a couple of themes that you see everywhere, regardless if it's a very large multinational transformation or a smaller organisation. I think the first is, no transformation starts off expecting to cost more at the end of it than it does at the start. So I think there's a very clear implication that a transformation should, as a result, have a lower cost base in the finance function in the future. The other thing that I think it's fundamentally trying to do is improve the insight that's provided to the businesses. It's trying to move finance away from that steward, that controllership function, which without any shadow of a doubt does add value to the business. It has to be done. But really, if you think from a CEO perspective, or you think like the shareholder value, that activity, whilst essential, is not helping drive the business forward. So I think that combination of kind of an element of cost reduction, but a mover into the move into greater insight provision, that's the kind of transformational goals. And the challenge tends to be that you tend to do one or the other. They very rarely happen in combination. You can go to a BPO model and you can take cost out of the organisation. My experience, typically at the expense of providing insight to the business, or you can have bolt-on tools that are going to kind of provide extra insight, but that obviously has increased cost to the organisation. So I think those challenges are around what we should be challenged as an industry is matching those two principles in transformation.
Great point. So Matt, from your many years in consulting and working with many customers across a variety of industries, I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Sure. And I would echo a lot of what Tim said in terms of what went into defining transformation and the different types of projects. If I reflect back on the 2 decades I've been doing consulting, so forgot to mention I'm a reformed CPA and CFO.
Never
so I've been on the other side of the table and lived the pain. But we, about a decade ago, defined something within Deloitte that we call the 4 faces of the CFO. So it talks about breaking down the roles of the CFO into a steward and operator and a catalyst for the business and a strategist. And I think that's important because if I look at the 2 decades as you were talking about, and if I break it down into kind of pre-4 phases and post-4 phases, one of the reasons that was important is before that, like really having a way to communicate. A lot of transformation ended up stalling because, as Tim mentioned, like if you couldn't define that you were going to spend less money doing something, or you couldn't quantify the shareholder value, then the roadmap stopped and you left things off. And so what we found was a lot of fragmented work, was not integrated across the functions. Once we had a way of talking to finance about how this is integrated and how what you're really looking to do is elevate the role of finance and accounting in the business, then we were able to attach objectives and we were able to attach initiatives to reaching more towards a catalyst and strategist role for finance. And so what we've seen is lately more organizations are being more holistic about it, but they're then still struggling with how do I continue to go because of the cost. So the second half became, I'd really like to do that because there's a quantitative and a qualitative benefit to it. But geez, the technology is not there. So I know you want to talk about digital later, but it's kind of like we're now moving out of the excuses realm. So some of the technologies I like to refer to as no excuses stuff. So I can't say that I can't do something because in-memory doesn't exist, which allows me to do processing that I couldn't do before. And so it was easier to have 4 people and paying them their salary than to invest in the technologies required to do it.
Great. Well, we're going to come back to the technology and the talent. So Rob, love to hear from your perspective.
Yeah, very, very similar view. I think I would sort of take it from a planning FP&A perspective. And I think what I've seen is, so first of all, I don't think that you ever stop changing, right?
Great point.
There isn't an end goal that is digital transformation and we're done.
We've arrived.
Change will continue to happen, and so we tend to think of it as a journey, and a journey that is constantly evolving. And so I think if I look back over the last 16 years or so, really what I see is this sort of incremental progress that companies make, and some of it is first getting through a technology shift that enables then a lot more value-added activity for the finance function, and that puts them on a path to becoming a more strategic partner to the organization. And so that's using technology to make processes more efficient, to get out of just data management and into actually analysis, to better collaborate around the organization. All of those things then elevate the role and actually begin to take advantage of the technology and the data that you have in front of you. And that just continues to evolve for companies over time. They'll start with the most acute pain first and continue to migrate out to more and more parts of the organization over time.
So obviously finance transformation is a journey, it's not a destination. And often you might transform in one area, and when you finish that one, now you're picking up another area. So I think that's where it's a great segue into the technology. And we've heard, what are all the terms? The emerging technologies, disruptive technologies, innovative technologies. All of these are playing a part in kind of how digital transformation has kind of been described. But I'd love to hear your perspective on what does digital transformation mean from your perspective, and then we'll kind of drill down a little bit on that, because I think that it's an overused term. I think that many people, I would probably even say don't even know what it means. So I'd love for you to share with our viewers and our listeners on what does digital transformation mean from your perspective and your view of the world. So I'll start with you, Matt.
think mine was harder.
I think it was actually. I was sitting here thanking Annette for passing that one to you first.
So I guess the first thing I would say is I think digital transformation is not limited to how does finance adopt technology. I think of it as we now have business operating models which take place in a extremely fast, technically enabled world where people expect to be able to engage with customers, with others, in a realm that our back office is not used to embracing. So what you can do on your phone today versus what you can do in the accounting office is like tremendously different. So I look at it as, how do I become that business partner that you were talking about? How do I become that insight partner for a digital organization? Now, what we found when we were trying to talk to organizations about what it means to be that and how they do it is we would get wrapped up in the conversation around what the tools are. And that's never a good place to start. So we took a step back and within Deloitte, and we did a methodology. We kind of looked at what those technologies are. You were saying we looked at what finance does today against those four faces of it. So we kind of brainstormed and said, okay, 5 years from now, what if we combine these different technologies together? How would work of finance change? And we came up with these 8 predictions for Finance 2025. I won't drain them here, we're limited in time. But in general, if you looked at them, it's about a vision of where transaction processing and the day-to-day is much more automated. There's intelligence on top of that. So how does the work of finance change? How does the model of my workforce change? Like, how do I incorporate gig workers to permanent employees to bots in there? And then, at the end of it, and I think Rob's going to probably like this statement, but it is about the data and the insights. So the organization becomes much more self-service. And so finance gets out of this yeoman's role of producing reports and needs to become more of a coach. What I think we do really well is we apply logic to issues to come up with outcomes or projected outcomes. So coaching others in the organization to use the data that's there and take on more of a data role around a stewardship and an identification. So that's, when I think of digital transformation in finance, it's like embracing that change in technologies to become more of a coach and enabler and less of the processor and using the tools and technologies to take on that work.
Okay.
I would say almost not just coach, but partner, right? It's not just about telling them how to do it, but actually sitting down with the organization to say, what does this tell us?
It's a we, not a you, isn't it? It's
right.
How are we going to do this, not how are you going to do it.
I think if you take a really big step back, I think of digital transformation as putting cloud and machine learning technologies to bear to bring data from around the organization into managers' hands to help make better decisions, right? Really what we're trying to do is enable better, faster, more insightful decision making. And so it's the right data in the hands of the right people at the right time. How do we make that happen?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with both of these guys, obviously. Just a couple of things I'd add. I think digital is something of a lazy term these days. I mean, I think it's a well-known path. Really what we're talking about is an organisation or an enterprise having the same kind of connection with its customers and that they have with all of their other interactions they have with people, and typically enterprises haven't been at that level yet. So we're getting there. I just think there's a couple of other things to call out. I think agility is critical. I think what digital gives us is the ability to adapt quickly to changing macroeconomic or commercial pressures or whatever. So I think that's a key thing. One would hope in time there is some degree of a cost efficiency that's going to get played into an organisation through that. But I really see it as using the technology to actually unlock the value in the data in your organisation. And we were talking before about how you structure data, and finance data is typically reasonably well structured to the level that we report at. If you actually go down a level into master data and supplier management systems, it tends to be less good. So I think From a finance function, I think there's a lot around a lot of digital transformations around that. How do you unlock the value of the how do you harvest the data and unlock the value of it and drive it?
Okay, so you were a great. It's a great lead into my next topic. And
I'll try and help you, Anna.
No. I love because what a common theme here that I'm hearing is data, and data enabling you to partner with the business, and data enabling you to make better decisions. You hear about data-driven decisions and decision-making. So I guess I'd almost like to imagine a world where, or what's possible with good, clean data and visibility across your entire organization. And I think from a finance perspective, we've talked about that finance stewardship, and they've largely been focused on financial data. But for finance to really be that partner to the business, they need to have visibility to data across the organization, to be looking at the business as a whole, and then they can be that partner, whether it's that partner to HR, that partner to marketing, the partner to sales, the partner for engineering. So I'd love to just hear thoughts and comments around data and what are you seeing, either how data is impacting the role of finance and really moving people forward if people are starting there, what you're seeing. I mean, I'm love just for you guys, let's just have a data conversation.
Jump in on data?
Yes.
I'll jump in on data.
Turn. Yeah.
I'll jump in on data. I think some of it, we had a great conversation before about how many times do you walk into a conference room and everybody's arguing about who has the right data. So the first part of data that ends up playing out is how can you bring together what everyone agrees is a single source of truth so that there isn't an argument over whether the data is correct, and really you're actually making then the conversation about the decisions and about the insights that's being driven. I think that finance sits at this great intersection of strategy and operations and has the trust of the whole organization and is typically enabled to see and access data from anywhere across any system. And so as a result, really does sit in a sort of crucial position to be able to help to orchestrate data across the organization, to bring together the finance data with the operational data, to make sure that it's clean and make sure that then there is a single source of truth, and then enable the use of that data across the organization to bring insights that make better decisions, that are faster, that are data-driven and not just gut reactions, and that are collaborative because everybody's got the same information and can be making decisions in a very coordinated and concerted way.
It's almost like data becomes the fuel for finance. I mean, that's just I like that concept.
I mean, I think it needs to become the fuel for the business, not just for finance. I have a real concern that finance typically would live with the information that sits in their ERP. And I remember doing this many times in my career. You get questions that are outside the ERP, and you're like, not my problem. I don't have access. They won't let me see it. I don't know. So you end up, finance becomes good at answering the what question. It doesn't have the capability of answering the why question because we don't know why the numbers move. We just know that's what the numbers are and that they're right. I have a real concern for the finance function of the kind of profession that with data and with the access to data and the collaboration around it, if the finance function doesn't grab the opportunity to go into an organisation and actually own the data across the enterprise, somebody else is going to do that. Okay, we're already seeing chief digital officers, in very large organisations, and they're that role is now starting to seek through smaller organisations. And if the finance function isn't careful, that person is going to have a superiority that's going to outrank the CFO in the future because they will own the questions to the business or the answers to the business, and finance will be, resigned to that kind of stewardship role. So I think if we don't do it, I genuinely think that there's a kind of paradigm shift away from the role of the CFO into a kind of more digital /CEO kind of customer-facing part of the business.
So all this conversations that we've had about finance being the CFO, being the strategic partner to the business, and being the CEO's right hand, we could start to see that shifting.
I think we could. I think it's the role. It's the role that is important to the business, not the person who's doing it.
So it's the attitude you take to the role too, right? So, and maybe I'll explain that by saying something I saw that I thought was pretty funny the other day. It was a sticker someone had on their computer and said, "Data is the new bacon."
The new bacon.
The new bacon.
Bacon.
So who doesn't like bacon, right?
Yeah.
So and our role in finance with regards to data has been so much around gathering it and storing it and ticking and tying it, and no one can have access to it. That's a death knell for your company today. Right? So the attitude that needs to change with finance towards data is not to want to own it and bring it in and be the sole user of it and the sole distributor of it, but to find a way to be that partner, the coach, the governor around helping the organization make sense of the data. There's so much data that if we allow the organization to just go and profile all the things that we collect, you'll go off on tangents that will not drive any value to the business. So given we're inherently kind of cynical, detail-oriented people on one half of our brain and kind of, logical strategist enablers, hopefully, on the other side, is like, how do you bring that together for the organization? How do you, these are the things that are important and will move the needle for the company, but don't waste your time on this, because it doesn't matter how precise your analysis is on that, it's going to move the needle that much.
Just that commercial element.
So it's really helping the organization figure out how to distribute their efforts at mining that data. And if you take that kind of an approach, people will naturally, cede, control's the bad word, but some level of governance and authority to you, because you're actually helping them do things better.
Well, I think what you'll also get is you start to empower those managers to make faster, better decisions on their own. You'll see with that empowerment, incredible amounts of ownership start to really come forward, and it changes the dynamic in the organization so that people are really stepping up to the role that they're supposed to play because they feel like they've been empowered to do so.
So two of the predictions that were in, so the one around data was, we're going to continue to get more data, we're going to continue to get better insights from that data, but we're going to continue to struggle to harness and reconcile and control that data. The second one was access to information is going to continue to be more and more self-service and less of a push, and finance is going to be incredibly uncomfortable with that, because we are used to checking that it's right and then pushing it out to everybody, and you don't have time for that cycle.
It's interesting. I think there's a nice balance there where finance can still play a role in making sure that it's right without controlling it all, right? So it's this delicate balance between acting as steward to make sure that what people are working from starts with the right information, but then enabling that self-service that you talked about that does empower them to own and make decisions.
I think that empowering is huge, because finance has been known as the gatekeeper, right? And it kind of went out to the managers or the kind of immediate ring right outside of their organization. But I think for organizations to have people actually participating and understanding how they're contributing to the bottom line is pushing information out to all corners of the business, right? And so that's offering that self-service capability, but it's not just giving them the numbers, because some of these people you're pushing it out to need to understand the why behind that, right? You can't just...
That's right. It's the story, it's not the numbers. The numbers are the numbers, it's the story that they're telling you.
Yes.
And critically, the self-service point I love, but it's all around getting that in a timely fashion so you can actually influence the results, not just reporting them in real time. So it's about changing them in real time, not reporting on them in real time.
Yep. So the fact that data needs to be near real time, or real time needs to be current, obviously, and being able to get it out to the users.
Yeah, and it needs to be delivered to the user in a way that they understand. So that data visualization is really important. If you're putting, you can go on putting lots and lots of numbers in front of certain parts of an organisation, they don't recognise, they don't think that way. You put graphs in front of them, see immediately what they need to do.
Well, visualization itself becomes important, and then the ability for users to drill into, to engage with that
they'll
data.
become curious and then they can drill
interact
into it. Exactly.
And interact with that data.
That curiosity, brilliant.
And the great aspect of that is that that's becoming easier and easier. I think we're making that much more accessible to the business user than it used to be.
Okay, so now let's pivot to technology, because I feel like technology, data, a nice companionship, because how technology leverages data. So whether we look at artificial intelligence, machine learning, you look at some of those, what we're calling more of those digital or disruptive or emerging technologies that we're now seeing and hearing about everywhere, how important data is, think about machine learning. The more the machine learns, the smarter it gets, right? The more market predictions it can make, the more it automates, the more it's able to surface issues and surface anomalies or exceptions. So would love to see and hear from you around using technologies, and what are you seeing? I guess I don't know if it's the aptitude or the understanding that the customers, clients that you work with, that you talk to, their knowledge base on this technology, and do they really understand the opportunity to impact finance, to automate process? Do they really understand that, or do we have a learning curve and a gap that we need to work on? So love to hear. Whose
turn is it?
Go ahead. So very quickly, yes, absolutely, there's a learning curve going on. If I think of myself as a finance professional, I work for a software company and I still don't understand the technology. So let's be very clear about this. People get very excited around machine learning. They focus very much on the machine. They focus on the technology and which technology provider, which they can understand. They focus on the algorithms, which typically finance people don't understand, but they know what they do, but they don't know. And what they're missing is the learning part. And learning is utterly dependent upon data. I hate to come back to that again, but the emerging technology is only going to be as good as the data set that it's applied to. And that's why at Workday, the whole power of one message starts to really resonate as you look into this space, because we have all of our customers on the same version of data. We have algorithms that are applied to that data set. And with one version, they're going to train quicker, the feedback loop's going to be smarter, and actually the benefit that our customers feel is going to be accelerated because of that power of one message. So what we're really starting to see, certainly in the conversations I'm having, is the morphing of a power of one message from finance to people. This is my own personal experience, many years ago. Finance people not really understanding this because it's a technology play, and what do I care about technology? I'm a finance person. That's moving to, okay, now I get it. Now I can understand, now I have a glimpse of the future, and now I understand that the data is important. Now I see what you've been doing in Workday. And they're really starting to join the dots on that now. So, but there's still a learning curve to go, for sure.
I mean, I think one of the things we were talking about earlier is that, excuse me, you have to be willing to change, and you have to be willing to adapt. And that can be scary when you don't understand the technology that would be used to enable the change. So it's hard enough to change, and then if you don't really understand how process automation and artificial intelligence works, then it's really hard to get people moving. So a couple things. So one is, what I've seen work really well is again, we go back to that partnership, is don't try and make the finance and accounting professionals technologists. Make them tech savvy.
Good point.
Implore the technology folks to understand their business partners and their stakeholders. And so the organizations that have really started to push the envelope with the technologies have done so by getting them in the room and talking about what the use cases are for improvement, and then iterate on it and just continue in an agile way to bring it together. And the second thing that we uncovered was, if I say, okay, here's process automation, now where can I put process automation in? Or here's machine learning, where can I put it? You end up with these applications of the technology that are they're halfway there, you don't get the full value out of it. So it's really okay, now I can put process automation. So now if I can put machine learning in with the process automation, then that's where I really get the bang for the buck. So, just to use a very specific example, so with adaptive insights, so now I'm in the cloud, it's as a service, I've got modeling capabilities, I've got in-memory. So then, Deloitte created our Precision View product that has machine learning and algorithms. So when I put that on top of adaptive, I go from enabling a client to do forecast and planning to enabling them to actually, on a weekly or daily basis, to generate forecasts with 90+% confidence, so that the business is now looking at a number and it's figuring out if that's the number they want, not spending the time creating the number. And so it's really figuring out how to put those together. And I actually believe on the finance professionals can be good about asking those questions, which ones go together or not, and let the technology folks figure out how to enable it.
Yeah, I think that it's part of this transition in the technology side of things is on us as technology vendors to make sure that those technologies are brought to the business users
as use cases
in an easy to consume fashion, right? So machine learning can be very complicated, very confusing to people, and so how do you take that and apply it in a way that's very consumable and very easy to then manage and maintain? So I think that's one of the challenges, and I think we're seeing tremendous progress there, and it's happening. We're talking about it here. It's happening in many ways.
Well, and with the Office of Finance in general, I'll put both the finance practitioners, accounting practitioners, obviously risk averse, kind of change. They avoid change, and I think that and they're all very matter of fact. They're very fact based, and I think to throw out buzzwords of machine learning and RPA and AI and blockchain, and I think that we as a vendor can do them a disservice if we don't put a use case or definition around it and say, well, let's talk about machine learning, let's talk about automation, let's talk about where we're putting it. And when they actually can see a tangible use case, the results of someone using it, then they put the two and two together and go, I see the value of it. Okay, so this is a great pivot point. Now let's talk about the talent and the skills, because I continue to hear this, that many finance practitioners or finance professionals almost view technology as something that's going to eliminate their jobs. But we also hear what's top of mind for CFOs is to up-level their talent. And so how do we love to hear perspectives on how do you balance not freaking people out and thinking that they're going to lose their job, and that might why they might dig in their heels and not want to embrace change around technology. But at the same time, finance organizations need to evolve their skill set, because in order to go forward in the future, we've been talking about data, we've been talking about insight. You need different skills. So love to hear thoughts on talent and skills and embracing technology, and you can take it any direction you want, because I love this topic and I think that it's something that's top of mind, but I'm sure our listeners and viewers would love to hear your perspectives.
I think it's hugely top of mind. I think people are worried that, what happens when this comes in? Do I lose my job? And I guess my view is, there's a lot of change, and somehow it's happening pretty fast, but we've always had change, right? Technology has come along every decade in a way that is impacting the work that we do. I think what we all have to just get comfortable with is, what does the newest wave of technology mean in terms of the shift in skills that I need? And I think for the finance organization, what we're seeing is a shift to a finance organization that has skills around good data management and analytics, right? At its core, we've just said data is so fundamental to everything that we're doing. We need a finance team that's comfortable with data and data analytics. But at the same time, we've said, well, that finance team has to be a partner and a coach. So communication skills are critical to the finance team. I can't have a team that wants to sit back in cubes, process transactions, and not engage with the rest of the business. And I think then finally it's really about, all right, that you take those two skills and you blend it with really a deep understanding of business models and business modeling, and how can I assess and understand the key drivers across my business. And so thinking about my company in a very analytical way, so I can break it down, explain it, and then communicate that to people. I think that the technology then is just enabling you to do all of those things. And so it's get comfortable with the fact that there will always be change, and understand how the technologies that are happening actually change your job for the better. And I think for the finance professional, it's changing it for the better by making you less of that data jockey and more of that partner, more of that strategic role in the organization.
So we hear the concept of buy, borrow, build, right?
Yep.
Bring in new talent, maybe borrow talent from other parts of the organization or build skills. all the customers, all the clients that you work with, what are you seeing them do when it comes to talent and
all of the above? Whatever they can. I mean, talent is such, it's a hot topic now, but it's also one, I mean, we could have taken the whole time to talk about
yes.
talent.
We're scratching the surface.
Because there's a couple different things. So one is exactly what you were just asking about, which is, so what is my new model? And that's influenced by a number of things. It's influenced by availability of skills. It's influenced by how my business is changing and how I'm going to interact in the organization. It's influenced by the generational changes in the workforce. So there are plenty of folks that have the skills that I would like, that Rob and Tim would like, that don't want to be part of a large organization.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right? They're a skilled professional, and they are very comfortable being on their own and doing gig work for hire. And you need to. So for finance, that is going to be really tough. The issue of generational, we are approaching the first time of having more than 6 generations in the marketplace at the same time. So imagine the dichotomy between two people who were 50 years apart in age having to work together. One is trying to figure out how to change, and the other one has expectations that you can't meet coming in. If I tie it back to the technology part, I've got 3 teenage daughters, and you better be doing your work right now. But they really, they will use technology to execute something and not really give a second thought as to whether AI and robotics are built into it. My generation isn't that. It's like, okay, I want to know how the stereo is set up and how the Bluetooth connects, and what do I have to enable, and all they would do is like hit the button and it worked, right? So you realize that when you have folks coming into your organization, some of them want machine learning, they want it built in, they expect everything to be in the cloud, and you have others that are really concerned about, am I going to lose my job for this? So as Rob said, this is not a new thing. So some of the things we do on the talent side is, we have some messages around like AI with ethics, right? So you actually have to understand what it is you're profiling, and so there's roles for the organization and people to do that, right? It's having the human interaction and overlay to the automation. So automation with insights. So those are some of the things that we're dealing with. One big challenge for finance, and I hear this from controllers and CFOs all the time, is they're not necessarily getting the skills they need. So it goes back to the buy and build. They're not getting the skills out of the schools that they need for the new economy. So what they're doing is they're putting very non-traditional teams together. They're going into the information sciences school, and they're going into the business school, and they're hiring one accountant and one data science and putting them together in a pod. And then they'll take the person who's been with the company for 30 years and put that person with them, and then 3 people will work together and bring their different skills together, because they're not getting it from one person. And I don't think that's inefficient. I actually think that's a really effective way to look at the future. We see organizations that have started from scratch in the last 5 to 10 years. Finance is embedded in the business, not this big central function. And so organizations are being forced in that direction.
Yeah, I think that's something HR has usually done better than finance. The HR profession has done business partnering better than the finance function has done that for a couple of good reasons, I think. But I think finance is now starting to do that. So I agree with the stuff that the guys have said about talent. The only thing I'd add to it is there's also an element of talent at the CFO level as well. So there's actually a change in some of the behaviours that you need to. We're talking about the team. There's actually a change in the behaviour at the top around collaboration sideways. So understanding more about IT, understanding more about the people in your organisation and the operation, and actually collaborating across that C-suite level. I think there's an element of change that needs to happen there as well. I think good CFOs do that anyway, but I think a lot of them don't as well. So think that C-suite mindset has to change to accommodate the changing talent pieces.
No, I love that. I love the conversation because we see some finance executives, professionals that really embracing technology, and I hear, and they're doing what it takes to evolve their organization. I see other observations that the DNA of the existing team, they don't have that DNA to adopt the technology. So I love the partnering idea. But I've also stumbled across where kids coming out of school, they're not being taught about this latest technology and what's possible. And I think that's, it's those kids are coming out now with not an appreciation or an understanding of how that technology is used. I look at, when we look at attracting talent, we look at the younger generations that they've grown up with. I would say machine learning, right? Because all of the things that are suggested to them when they go shopping, right, on Amazon, and then they turn around and then they go somewhere else and there's an advertisement, based on something that they just looked at. And that's what they expect, I think, coming into organizations. And I think that when this is also a little bit of a, of a sense of urgency or something, that if you want to attract a higher level talent or you want to attract talent that actually understands this technology, are you going to have to take a good hard look at what you've got in your back office?
I mean, it's both a generational issue, and it's both the difference between like digitally native organizations and more traditional ones. Is it's really creating this very specific expectations gap, in that in our personal life or in a natively digital organization, I can go on Rob's iPad and I can call a car service, I can order my groceries, I can book my airline, I can have things recommended to me that I can choose to engage, I can enter a sporting event. But then I turn around and I get out of I can summon my car, but I get out of the car and I walk into work.
Office.
And if I want access to the information and the data, I have to put in a request and I have to wait for that to come back. There's this big gap between what I do in my personal life and what I can do at work, and it's really a flip of what folks, at least in my generation, grew up with. Like, you would leave home and you'd go to work and like, wow, I have computers and I can automate stuff. And I go home and you'd still be writing your checks out in the checkbook.
Yes.
Right? And filing papers.
Yes.
And that is completely flipped in the last 10 years. And that's where finance needs to catch up to have talent want to be in finance.
Yes, that is a great point, because you look at how much paper is still in finance. How much a paper invoice, a paper expense report, a check. I mean, you think about the number of things. I mean, there's a lot of automation there, but there's still a lot of manual paperwork. And I love the analogy of going from how we used to be all paper at home. We used to be more old school at home work, and now it's completely flipped, because it's like, do we use any paper at home? Do we even get receipts? You don't get printed receipts. Someone asks if you want it emailed or you want to text it to you. So, I mean, what's it going to take? And so it's kind of another change in kind of how do a sense of urgency. How do we, or how do customers? What's the tipping point? What's the catalyst? What's going to cause people to start seeing that they need to look at moving sooner rather than later? Because all of these things we've been talking about, from the data, from the technology, from the talent, and automation. I mean, it's how do we I don't want to say light the fire, but how do we create that sense of urgency that people move today versus tomorrow?
I think it's, for many of these companies, it's pretty straightforward, right? They're falling behind competitively. They're having trouble hiring talent because they're not seen as being forefront in the way that they're managing their business. And if I'm losing to competitors and I'm having a hard time hiring, something has to change. right? I think those two catalysts are pretty strong catalysts.
And
for
I'd say,
change.
I totally agree with those two. The other one I'd say is I don't think change is going away. I don't think the macroeconomic environment that we're going to work in or the regulatory environment is going to get easier. It's going to get more complex.
Yes.
And it's not going to slow down.
If you are in a traditional kind of paper-locked organisation that thinks traditionally, and you're asked to change to new accounting standards, you're asked to change to deal with Brexit or any kind of government kind of issues that are out there. Don't laugh, it's not funny, Brexit. It really isn't funny, but it's
I feel for you.
Yeah, but it's really hard for organisations to actually navigate through that unless they have the tools to do so. So I really think it's that kind of adapt or die kind of mentality that I think we really are close to that tipping point now for many organisations.
So I think one last question, and we can wrap up with that, is I'd like to ask each one of you to what's one thing you'd like to leave the audience with, and the listeners and viewers with, and when they think about digital transformation. We've talked about digital first companies, we've talked about digital leaders, and what does it look like to become a digital enterprise, but when we think about the data, we think about the technology, we think about the talent, I don't know it's possible to summarize one thing or what would be one piece of advice that at least for someone it could be a practical step forward, it could be just something to think about that it's like that someone's going to now take away with them and I guess chew on it for a while and so I'd love, you guys are a wealth of information and I'd love to hear you some pearls of wisdom that
Deep thoughts.
I'm not going to keep you to, if you have more than one, I'm not going to limit you to one, but I'd love to hear thoughts. So
Sure. 5 words. I can boil it down to 5 words.
Okay.
And then I'll have to explain it.
Okay.
First 2 are don't wait. The next 3 are start with culture. So if you are not already trying to figure this out, if you're not already invested in it, you're too late. Your competitors are doing it. New startups are already have this embedded in their models. So to remain competitive and to excel and succeed, you need to start. Don't worry about where you're starting. Just be agile and go. And that's the culture part. So we're coming out of a culture of very time-stamped project orientation, periodic reporting. Has to all be done right or whatever. Fail fast, reward the try, and you just have to change the culture within an organization. People will be less concerned about losing their job if you are investing in them. They'll be less concerned about trying new things if you reward the idea, not the outcome. So those are the suggestions that I would have.
Love that.
Okay, I'll condense mine down to a story that I was told in Europe, in a country in Europe recently, where the first time the CFO told me he'd been given a revenue target by his CEO. And he was basically told, there is value in the CFO was told by the CEO, there is value in the data in my organisation, it is incumbent on you to go and find it, and you have a revenue budget. So for the first time, that pressure, that commercial pressure, was put onto the finance function, not just to count everyone else's performance, but actually given their own revenue generating target. And the answer is in, basically the CFO was told the answer is in the business somewhere, go and find it and go and turn that into commercial advantage for them. So that, again, that focus on data and that focus on commercial success and the value associated with it is absolutely critical for the audience.
Wow.
I think it's maybe a combination of the two, which is, look, it is a journey. Start where you have the most pain, but start. Right? I can't agree with you more. Right? You've got to just take that step. Jump in, get started, embrace the fact that it's a change, and keep moving. And I think from the data side, I think the critical aspect of data is to really step back and understand what are the decisions that your business needs to make, and underlying those decisions, what key elements do people need, and then really begin to think more holistically about data. I think one of the challenges that everyone faces is that data is very siloed. So to the degree you can bring that together into one framework and really begin to see it that holistic way, this all starts to feel a little less daunting over time.
This has been an amazing discussion. I thank each one of you for your perspectives, your insights, your sharing your knowledge, sharing your experience. And with me being, I'd say I kind of geek out on this stuff because I've been involved in the space for a while, so I love to hear the perspectives and the opportunity. I think I get chills when I think about the opportunity for finance and what's possible, and I just think that people should embrace it and be excited about it. Because there's so much possibility awaiting them, but I feel like in the world that we're in with constant change, it's like jump in, and take advantage of it. So thank you, Matt, for joining us. Tim and Rob, thank you so much, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
Until next time.
Hi there, everyone. I'm Kelly Emo. I am the Senior Director of Technology Product Marketing at Workday, and I'm joined here by two subject matter experts to dive into a really interesting topic, one of the key areas in our changing world, which is the impact of technologies like artificial intelligence and machine learning on HR. So I'm joined here by Eric Buckelberg, who is the head of HR transformation in IBM Consulting, and also Richard Darty, also Senior Director of Product Marketing at Workday. So I'm going to kick it off by teeing up an overall question to the two of you, which is, we're hearing a lot about machine learning and artificial intelligence, but I think people get a little confused on the terminology. So maybe we start a little bit with, what's the difference between AI and ML?
Sure. So yeah, artificial intelligence is this concept of machines or computers that can perform functions that are similar to humans, right? They don't actually think, and they work in a more probabilistic manner than your typical software, which is more deterministic. Machine learning itself is a subcategory under artificial intelligence. That's basically how these models are trained.
Oh, very cool, very cool. I also know it's hard not to throw a rock and hit an article about machine learning or artificial intelligence. It seems like there's a lot of hype. Would love to get your perspective, especially from an HR perspective, of what's the hype and what's real now? What are you really seeing as taking off in this space of machine learning and AI?
Well, you're right. The media really hypes up the what AI can do. If you believe the media or believe the hype, you think that this era of intelligent machines is already here. But even with everyday examples like Alexa or Siri, today's AI that we interact with on a daily basis, it's not capable of independent thought. There's an expert at IBM who says, his quote is that all AI is pattern recognition, right? So that the computer recognizes a pattern and provides a response based on the learned model. And that's true, but it's extremely powerful pattern recognition. You can do some amazing things with that in HR.
Richard, do you have any thoughts on that one as well?
I think there's a lot of hype. However, I think that ML, machine learning specifically, is going to lead to significant transformation within HR, and it's already doing that. I mean, I did a presentation yesterday here at Workday Rising with Eric's colleague, John Lester, who heads up their internal HR systems, and we were talking about the impact that technology is having on the HR function, on the roles that people do. So, for instance, it's not AI, but at a level, anything that can be automated almost certainly will be automated.
That's true.
At IBM, and that leads probably to a discussion later on about, are we going to be replaced by the machine, and hopefully not. But so anything that can be automated will be automated. But then also, this is IBM doing some very clever stuff. So, for instance, and they're doing this today with pay slips. Every month there are 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 anomalies with a pay slip, and employees want to know, why is my pay changed? And that's a laborious, labour-intensive process to respond to those cases. But at IBM, they're using AI to automate and put on the pay slip the reason why. Or the cause of that anomaly. So I think it's there today, and I think we're accelerating in terms of our use of ML. I don't know what you think.
Yeah. So the example you talk about is this concept of zero-touch operations, right? Yeah. So in use cases where that are highly repetitive, a lot of volume involved, speed might be a factor. That kind of lend themselves readily to automation. That AI is a no-brainer there, right? And the example that Robert talked about is something that we do at IBM. But the other thing that I'm pretty excited about is that you also have the ability for AI to augment human intelligence. Like our term is augmented intelligence. And in situations where humans need to make decisions, you're not going to replace that decision making. You won't be able to do that, but you want to give them better information to make better decisions. And that's where I think AI is going to have a huge impact on HR, because so many of the decisions that are made today are based on more just sort of my own prior experience or my gut feel. AI can make decisions that help you make decisions that are more data driven, more consistent, and less biased.
Interesting.
On that point, actually, so it's going back another IBM example. Actually, so I was at another conference. It's conference season a few weeks ago, and I went, and Gary Kasparov, the ex-world chess champion and grandmaster, was giving a presentation, and it was quite funny because he said he was pretty much the first knowledge worker to be replaced by a machine, because he played chess against Big Blue, right? That's IBM Big Blue. And I think the first time they played, he won. But the second time, Big Blue beat Gary Kasparov,
yes.
the world champion. This was across the world in terms of the media and so on. However, what was quite interesting, there is some hope. Basically, he said, whenever a machine plays a human at chess, the machine will always win, 100%. But when the machine plays a machine plus a human, the machine plus a human will win every single time. And I think that's our direction of travel, right? It's not about having machines replace people, it's about this augmentation.
Yep.
And then, person plus machine will always outperform the person or the machine.
Yeah. That's a really good point. I would love to dig in a little bit more on what are some of these areas you're seeing in HR that are where you're getting this combination of the machine learning insight and then the human judgment, and actually really improving the state of that HR area.
Yeah, I've got a great example for you. So at IBM, when we went to Workday, we kind of changed our HR operating model. We eliminated a lot of our HR business partners for frontline managers, right? Because we didn't need them anymore. Manager self-service. And we also, at the same time, we were changing our business strategy to focus more on leading edge technologies like cloud and AI and blockchain and so on. And we recognized that we needed to shift our compensation strategy as well. So we wanted to start paying for skills. And the skills that were strategic for IBM. And that was a way to have a conversation with employees about, your pay is going to be higher if you're developing yourself in the areas that are important to IBM. So we wanted to make sure that our compensation decisions, that the managers were considering the correct factors, and that they were supporting that compensation strategy. But we had no business partners to support that, so we actually built a machine learning model that would enable that would provide that advice. And it's actually integrated with Workday. So when a manager goes in there for our annual salary plan, he or she will see all of their employees and see what their recommendation is in terms of what level of increase they should get, and the rationale behind that. And that's all been generated by our machine learning model for compensation.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So just to add to that, so I think as well, so with ML, it's about these recommendations that will transform the experience and hopefully help the individual make a better decision. But I think also, going off piece slightly, with the potential of ML is also to really radically transform certain areas of HR. You mentioned skills. Maybe traditionally the problem with skills has always been maintaining the skills data, maintaining the taxonomy, because skills are changing all the time, and now skills are changing faster than ever. So many organisations, they kind of give up. It's too difficult. But the problem is now we're in a skills-based workplace, right? It's not the job you do, it's the skills you've got that's important. And organisations need to use skills to match people to work, to put people on the right training, to match people to gig opportunity, all that stuff's their skills. So what you can do is you can use machine learning to actually build that taxonomy, if you like, and automatically maintain that data, add in new skills as they appear, remove old skills as they become obsolete, determine the relationships between skills, and then that becomes the foundation, if you like, for your organisation's talent management activities. So there, ML is not replacing anyone's job, but it's enabling a whole load of new jobs, and it's going to enable a whole load of new recommendations so that people are empowered, they can manage their careers, they can be matched to work within the organisation, and so on and so forth. So I think we're all glass half full people here, and that's a great example of positive transformation.
Absolutely. You hit a really important topic, and I'm going to pivot a little bit because I think it'll be really important to everybody listening. You mentioned the importance of data. So can you share some of your perspective on, if you're a company just kind of starting out on this ML journey, what to really think about in terms of what's going to make you successful with data and setting up for machine learning, and maybe even touch a little bit on security, because that's a big topic too. Just kind of touch on those.
Yeah, sure. Data is important, right? And a lot of companies will look at their situation and say, my data is not clean enough, I can't get started. And we always recommend getting started, because you can always do some proof of concepts or pilot to understand where your data may have shortcomings, and use data scientists to clean that up. But it doesn't eliminate the fact that you do need some foundational things. Some companies haven't done a lot to organize or to manage their positions or their jobs in a way that's consistent across business units. So if you don't have that, it's going to be really hard to implement a solution that requires a lot of data, like machine learning, to get the insights you need, because you need a critical mass.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but you can't do machine learning. You can't do AI really unless you've got the data. So you know, you need to get your data ideally in one place. So you have that holistic view and as much data as possible. I think as well, you talked about privacy there. I think a really important element of this, because we've been let down in our consumer lives, have we not, in terms of the abuse of our data and not really knowing what people are going to be doing with our data. So I think in the enterprise side, which is where we operate, I think there's a massive focus on trust and asking for permission.
Yeah.
And we're doing lots of machine learning based innovation at Workday as our IBM, and I think we're very clear on getting the permission from our customers, and we explain exactly what we're going to do with that data. That data will be anonymized or masked, and if we want to use that data in a different way, we go back and we ask again. So, and I think as well, if you're using AI and ML in your organization, I think it's really important that you're completely transparent with the workforce. So this shouldn't be something being done sneakily behind the curtain.
Yeah.
You need to be absolutely clear, this is what we're doing, this is what we're using ML or AI for. And frankly, it needs to, certainly with Workday, it's positive use cases, right? It's to help people manage their careers, find opportunity, and so on and so forth. But I think that transparency is really important. Otherwise, you lose the trust of people. And, that's the last thing in the world any of our customers want to do.
Yeah, I agree with Richard. There's already this fear about AI and automation, right? In terms of, is it going to replace my job? But also, what's this going to tell you about me that I don't want you to know? And so it's really important as you have these initiatives inside the enterprise that you're very upfront about why you're doing it, and that you're demonstrating the value to the employee. I was speaking with a startup vendor who had this machine learning solution that he said this is foolproof at identifying attrition, patterns of attrition by looking at email data of employees. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. He says, well, first it's looking just email traffic, sort of like the metadata. He said, but if we were allowed to actually look at the content itself, then we can predict with 85% accuracy if someone's going to leave within 3 months of their leaving. And I said, I don't know any enterprise that would want to implement that, because as soon as the employees hear about that, they're going to shut down all their email communication.
Yeah. Pretty intrusive.
On the positive side of that equation, one last thing I wanted to touch on with machine learning and HR, we've been focused more on HR processes.
Yeah.
How about the employee experience? Where are you seeing some areas where ML and AI are really making a better, individual employee experience?
Yeah, I think there's actually a nice intersection here of the capabilities of AI getting to the point where they can help enterprises provide more personalized experiences, and the desire for enterprises, or the recognition that employee engagement is really critical, and we're all competing for talent, and people can always go across the street for a better job. So how can I make this experience for you more personal, more meaningful for you? And AI is great for that, right? So it helps you collect the insights that Richard was talking about, so you can understand, if I'm going to put together a learning solution and I help someone develop a career path, I don't want to give them just a generic career model. I want to give them a career path that's based on their own interests, their own goals, and identifies the things they need to develop to get there. And AI allows you to do that.
Very cool. Do you have any?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at our consumer lives, if we're on our favourite retail site, or social media application, they're contextualising the experience. There's recommendations. They're pushing content that they think will be interesting for us. Whereas when you go into a traditional enterprise application, it's generally a set of icons or a set of menus that gives you access to functionality. So it's a totally different experience to the one that we would have at home in those consumer applications. So I think the enterprise applications, we need to take our lead in the consumer world, with these modern HR systems and finance systems, you have a lot of data, and typically that data is in one place. So therefore, you can use that data to understand the employee, what their interests are, by looking at other employees like them or their specific interests, and then we can have that more conversational interaction, if you like, with the employee, where we're predicting what kind of tasks are they going to want to do at this time of year, or based upon perhaps they've just been made a manager, so therefore they're going to need some extra help in transitioning to become a manager, and so on and so forth. And I think we'll see in the enterprise space a lot of that kind of work being done. And I think that's going to have many advantages, one of which will be, I think, employees will use those systems more because they'll become more relevant, more useful, rather than just, I'll go and book my holiday or look at my pay slip. It's going to be much, much more than that, because it will be relevant to me, it will help me be more productive, manage my career, and so on and so forth.
It's interesting you say that. I think in my personal life, what are the applications that I use the most that have some machine learning or AI? They're the ones that both understand me and my preferences, but are also very simple to use. And we don't need more bells and whistles and knobs and to have to navigate through them all. So that's very, very true.
That leads us on to another kind of branch of AI, which is natural language processing and chatbots. We're talking about simplifying the experience, and I know both IBM and Workday, we're pushing chatbots and that kind of technology because we're finding it's driving adoption. People, if you go into a system you're not sure what to do, if you can actually just type in a question and the chatbot will give you an answer or point you in the right direction. And I think as well, from a future of work, future of HR, chatbots, certainly in IBM, John Lester yesterday was talking about how IBM are using chatbots to handle quite a large proportion of the employee requests that are coming in that would have been raised as cases, can now be processed through the chatbots. So I don't know if you can share some of your experience.
Yeah. So getting into that zero-touch operations thing, we believe that conversational AI is the future, and it's a way to make things simple and intuitive, right? Rather than having to try to find how to do this and log into a system, if I could just go to a chatbot or even have a voice-to-text conversation and get my what I need to get done, it's easier for me. Our IBM HR organization has looked at how to kind of categorize experiences and then to design those experiences so that the employees find them they kind of meet the employees' needs. And some experiences, you want to be like these balloon moments where things fall from the ceiling, and it's a great thing, and I'm going to tell my family about it. But others, like getting my paycheck reissued or getting those questions answered, it shouldn't even register as an experience. It should be so easy. And so John and his team have done a great job of identifying what are the top questions that come into our service center, and how do we put in a conversational solution to address those so we can get those answers real time.
So like identifying between those moments that matter, if you want to call it that. And, it's interesting. Another question I was going to ask, and it surfaces in this conversation, is sometimes experience can be generational, and we're now facing, like a 5-generation workplace. But one thing I found, even personally, that seems to transcend generations is conversational user interface. I mean, my dad is 80 years old and he loves his Alexa. So I don't know if you have any thoughts also about the user experience with AI and then the generational workplace and how it helps fit that.
Well, when you implement an AI solution, like we have a lot of clients will come to us, and maybe probably get the same story, and they'll say, well, I want something that does X, Y, Z, right? And they're looking for the technology, and we're saying, let's take a step back for a second. The technology can do whatever you want it to do, but let's better understand the outcome. And to understand the outcome, you got to understand the experience that you want to create. And the process of doing that is by looking at who are the people that you're building this for, and you're going to recognize that there are different personas. So some generations are going to have a different syntax they might use than others. And you got to be prepared to handle all those situations.
That's a good point. Yeah, and some people are going to prefer more conversation. Some people just like good old email.
Yeah, so you need multi-channel.
Exactly, multi-channel.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure about the generation thing, as you said. Some people like chatbots, some people don't. I mean, I'm not sure.
Yeah, might be generational.
Yeah, who knows? But, multi-channel is the way.
Right.
So we just kind of scratched the surface a little bit on automation, and I'd like to maybe explore a little bit more in that area as well, and really talk about where we're seeing or how we're seeing automation and AI both improving the HR environment, and also what things do companies need to get ahead of. And it's lurking there a little bit, the worry that, am I going to get automated out of my job? And so how do we kind of prepare those transitions so that people have ongoing opportunities?
Yeah, I get those questions a lot, and you see these studies, McKinsey, PwC, Gartner, they all say that AI and automation are going to fundamentally change the nature of work. There's no doubt about that. Some jobs are going to be eliminated, and some jobs are going to be created, right? And now they're saying that probably more jobs will be created than won't be, but all jobs are going to be changed. And like any revolution in the workspace, new skills are going to be required. So the recommendation that we always give people, and even it's true in HR as well, is that you got to be prepared to reskill. No matter where you are in your career, no matter how old you are, your ability, this idea of learning agility, is going to be really important to make sure that you can kind of stay up with the technology and that you're going to be qualified to function in these new roles.
Yeah, like the original reading, writing, arithmetic, and coding.
Yeah,
it should be part of every curriculum.
Right.
Richard, do you have any thoughts on that?
Sort of a positive spin on that is we talked about it earlier. So about the introduction of drones in say the military, right? So previously you had an aeroplane with a pilot. He or she would go off and do the reconnaissance, whatever it may be. Now you have a drone which doesn't have anyone on it. However, I believe you have support teams of up to 30 people now supporting that drone, all with different tasks, different types of skills to manage that drone and its flight and so on and so forth. So while for every job that's lost we're probably not going to create 30, I think that if we look through history, the jobs we do, it continually changes, but new jobs appear. I mean, behind us here we have our social squad. You go back 6 or 7 years, there wasn't a social squad. Like, we didn't have social media analysts. Right? So I think there'll be a whole array of new roles. And if you go back to the Kasparov example, given that it's person plus machine, it's going to outperform machine, then I think it's about augmentation. But true, those where there's no judgment required, where you're if you're transferring, let's say your job is to transfer data from one system to another and reconcile data, that's going to be probably automated out. But hopefully there will be other jobs that people will. It's lifelong learning. You're going to need to reskill, almost certainly. But yeah, glass half full, I think. So I see a positive job creation trend here as opposed to decimation of the workforce.
Let me give you an example in service centers, right? So service center, there's usually high turnover in service centers. We go into HR service centers and we'll do an automation assessment to see what these things that can be automated. And in almost every case, the people who are the service center employees, the agents, they're happy because we're actually automating the things they don't like to do, the drudgery, right? Like, okay, you got to take all this data and you got to copy it from here and paste it over here and make sure you don't mess anything up. And sometimes you actually have to type it in because the copy paste doesn't work in the new system. And they love the fact that that's going to be taken away from them, and they can focus on these higher level things that they providing real services to the people who are calling in. And in some cases, maybe they might be the ones who are maintaining the robots or sort of dispatching the dispatch of the robots as well. And so that gives them a career path beyond what they would typically see too. And so in those situations, we're seeing people are embracing automation. Now, I know in other jobs it's not always going to be the case, but I agree. Like half glass full. If you look at, all right, how can this make my job better, and how does this open me up to more opportunities? Then you don't have to worry about it.
And if you combine that dynamic with the benefit of machine learning to open up more intelligence to organizations about skills and the
and
career
what can
paths,
you do?
and then it really builds on each other.
Yeah.
So I think we just have a little bit more time. I always like to ask this question at the end, which is the open-ended. What's the thing I didn't ask you that you would like to leave the HR audience with in terms of the impact and importance of machine learning and AI?
Well, I guess one thing we didn't really talk much on is bias, right?
Yes.
So in the broader ecosystem, like there's a lot of concern about bias in AI, facial recognition, those kinds of things, and so there's concerns inside the enterprise as well, especially when you're using it to augment decisions. And what I tell HR organizations is that you're already the watchdog for preventing bias in the enterprise, and that role doesn't change. And what's important is that as you automate more and more processes, just to make sure that these standards of fairness and diversity are upheld. Right? So I think it just reinforces the importance of HR playing that role as you adopt more AI in the enterprise.
Richard, similar question? I know it's open-ended.
Yeah, well, on that point, I suppose you could say to try and remove remove bias from any AI. You can use AI to kind of AI on top of AI. What other questions? Gosh, you've got me on the spot now.
I can lay one up for you.
Well, I suppose the question would be how many organisations are genuinely using AI today? And I think in a HR context, I don't think it's that many yet.
It's not.
It's early, yes.
You know, because this is what we do, isn't it? And we talk about this a lot, and certainly in the last 12 months, we're talking more and more about AI and ML. But I think we're still, you know, if people are watching this thinking, oh God, I've been left behind, you haven't. I think lots of organisations are doing the foundational work at the moment, which is around what we mentioned earlier, getting the data. Really. Modernising systems and trying to get all the data in one place and decide, what they're going to use AI and ML for. So I think we'll see much broader adoption of AI and ML in the next sort of 3 to 5 years. So if you're listening to this, don't worry, you haven't been left behind. I think IBM and Workday, we're using a lot of AI and ML, but we're really early adopters, I think. That would be.
So on that point, again to build on that, don't feel like you have to have all the questions answered before you start. So I have a lot of clients who are very interested in this, and they have so many questions. And finally I say, you know what, you're not going to have all the answers, right? And so this idea of working in an iterative way, being agile, is really important when it comes to AI, because you have to figure out what are the skills you need to support it, how are your employees and your managers going to respond to it, and what are the things you have to do to adjust the solution so it's going to achieve the outcomes that you're targeting when you implement. So my advice is always just to get going, get started.
Maybe pick a couple of places to apply it, pilot test it, learn as you're dealing with it. The good news also is a lot of AI is getting built in, so you'll start engaging with it without actually having to engineer it yourself. So
that's a good point, actually. Because, there's not many organisations who would want to build this stuff, who have the resources to do it. So get systems with it built in, I think is the moral.
Well, I know we're about 2 minutes to go, so I just want to thank the audience for joining us today, and thank Eric and also Richard. Any parting thoughts before we wrap up? All good.
Well, I think it's been a great conference here in Orlando, and we're going to Universal Studios tonight.
That's true.
I'm particularly excited about. There's probably lots of AI there. I don't know. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I'm excited about that too, but I'm also excited about all of the AI and machine learning announcements that Workday has made this week.
There are a lot.
It's certainly there's tremendous opportunity to have impact in HR, and you've got such a great source of data. And then one of the hallmarks of Workday is that the data is already well organized, right? So with other solutions, you don't necessarily have that, and so it's a real advantage for those companies that want to do this, that they're on Workday.
Great. Well, thank you very much, and we'll have fun at Universal playing with whatever AI is available for us. And thank you to the audience.
All right.